Well, SUVs are breeding like rabbits, and it's barely a week that goes by without a newborn arrival, and one that claims to do something better than all the others. And these are the latest two, the brand new Jeep Compass and Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross. Critical cars for their respective brands. But how do they stack up against established players like the Ford Escape and the Hyundai Tucson?
The second generation Compass is important for Jeep, as it not only replaces its predecessor, but also the smaller Patriot model. The limited version we're testing here sits near the top of the range and is the most expensive of this quartet at $41,250 plus on-road costs. It comes with a leather interior, dual-zone climate control, 18-inch alloy wheels, and has automated emergency braking as standard. Customers can upgrade the safety package, however, with adaptive cruise control, forward collision and lane departure warnings, blind spot monitoring, and a powered tailgate.
Well, from behind the wheel here, there's a lot to like about the Jeep Compass. For starters, there's a good seating position and plenty of vision. It's also got some of the latest technology. There's a fully digital instrument cluster that's multi-configurable and the most comprehensive infotainment system, which also comes with a booming audio system by Beats. There's also some nice clever touches, like a map pocket beside the center console and this flip-up passenger seat where you can hide your stash. But it's not perfect. The quality and presentation of some of the materials isn't quite up to scratch, and it doesn't have as much small item storage as some of the other cars here, particularly the Tucson. But it's not too bad for everybody else either. There's a decent amount of legroom, probably not as much headroom as some of the others, but it is the only car here with some clever bits in the back. It's got a 40-20-40 split folding rear seat that gives it greater flexibility, and there's also rear air vents, plus a USB controller, and a 230 volt power adapter that allows you to keep laptops or other mobile devices fully charged.
The Compass is powered by a 2.4 litre four-cylinder engine, the only naturally aspirated motor here, that produces 129 kilowatts and 229 newton meters. It drives an advanced all-wheel drive system through a 9-speed automatic gearbox.
So bigger doesn't always necessarily mean better, which is a case in point with this engine. Not a turbocharged motor like the other three here, it's a naturally aspirated conventional four-cylinder. And in that regard it suffers in other areas because you have to rev the engine quite hard and it gets noisy and a bit raucous at higher speeds. There's also some rough harmonics about it, which doesn't make it kind of pleasant to do so. Now this car also has a dual clutch automatic gearbox like the Hyundai, but in the Jeep it has 2 extra gears. It's a 9-speeder, and you would think that means it's probably going to be a little bit more effortless, but it's kind of opposite. Because of the broad spreader ratios and its lack of low-end torque, the engine has to work that gearbox a lot harder too, and you find it hunting for gears more often. You tip into the throttle and it will immediately kick down a couple of gears. You let off the throttle and it will go up a couple of gears, and that constant fluctuation just means it feels a lot busier on the road. The rest of the mechanical package, again, isn't quite as well polished as the best in the class. The steering is meatier in its feel than most of the other cars here, but it kind of doesn't feel as precise in some ways either. And the suspension, well, it's definitely got a lot more of a firmer nature about it. You immediately feel the smallest of bumps in the road, and it kind of, again, like that gearbox, makes the car feel busy all the time. And bigger bumps are definitely felt by all the occupants in this cabin. On the flip side of that firmness to the ride, the Compass actually hangs on through the corners pretty well. It's got a reasonably flat stance and is sure-footed through the bends.
A new Mitsubishi doesn't come around all that often these days, and the Eclipse Cross is a model that will set the tone for future small cars from the Japanese brand. The flagship Exceed model we're driving costs $38,500 plus on-road costs and comes with the most generous list of standard equipment, including heated and ventilated front seats, a panoramic sunroof and LED headlamps. It also has the most comprehensive safety package with automated emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, lane departure warning and collision warnings as standard, and is the only one here with a 360-degree camera.
The Eclipse Cross's cabin is certainly a big step up for Mitsubishi, both in terms of presentation and technology. There's a good mix of materials with this brushed aluminium, fake carbon fibre and really nice soft touch plastics. The leather seats here are also the most supportive in this quartet, and there's a good mixture of small item storage. This floating tablet touchscreen is also pretty comprehensive and comes with a nice touchpad controller here in the center console. Well, looks can be a little bit deceiving. Because the Eclipse Cross appears smallest on the outside, don't think for a minute that it's the smallest on the inside. In fact, there's probably more knee room than any of the other cars in this competition. However, its sloping roof does limit headroom somewhat. It also does miss out on some of the key features that the others have. There are no rear air vents, there's only one power outlet, and the seats aren't quite as comfortable as any of the other cars here. The Eclipse Cross also has a reclining rear seat function, just like the Escape. However, one thing's different, it's not quite as easy to adjust while on the move.
Under the bonnet, the Eclipse Cross introduces a new generation 1.5 litre turbo 4-cylinder that, while having the least power in this quartet of 110 kilowatts, almost matches the Tucson for torque with 250 newton meters. Uniquely, it drives all four wheels via a CVT automatic, with 8 pre-programmed ratios for a manual operation.
That engine immediately impresses. It feels kind of elastic in the way that it revs. It's got good low-down pulling power and a nice little mid-range. It does run out of breath a little up the top, and part of that elasticity is because it's hooked up to a CVT automatic gearbox, which is smooth and irons out all of the interruptions that those dual clutch automatics give in terms of jerkiness at low speed. None of that in this car. Instead, it does feel a little lethargic when you try and tap into some of that performance. It takes a while to get all of the torque to the road. As for how it handles the bumps of Australian roads, well, in some regards it's quite controlled. It's relatively smooth over good surfaces, but it kind of pitches a little over bumps, and really sharp-edged sudden bumps, it crashes quite through the cabin. And surprisingly, there is a fair bit of road noise. There's a constant thrum, even on smooth surfaces. All in all, the Eclipse Cross is kind of engaging to drive. It's got good sort of road holding, it's got a sure-footed sort of stance on the road, and it does feel quite agile through the bends. I wouldn't say it's a mixed bag, because for everyday family duties 95% of the time, this car is really, really impressive.
The Ford Escape is a highly underrated member of the family SUV set. The trend model we're testing here is the most affordable at $35,990 plus on-road costs. It features a decent array of gear, including 18-inch alloy wheels, dual-zone climate control, but it is the only one here with a cloth interior trim. Like the Jeep, safety comes at a price with the Ford, as an optional pack brings AEB, adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assistance.
Well, the Escape's dash is trying to be a little bit futuristic, and that brings with it some compromises. The fact that it's all forward-facing means it doesn't feel as airy in the cabin as some of the other cars here, and it certainly limits the small item storage space. But the Sync 3 infotainment is comprehensive and easy to use. Well, again, there's a similar amount of knee room for backseat passengers and a little bit more headroom like the Tucson. There's also rear air vents and one power outlet. And to suit different family members, this car also has reclining rear seats.
The 2-litre turbo 4-cylinder produces significantly higher outputs than its rivals, with 178 kilowatts and 345 newton meters. It is linked to a 6-speed automatic transmission.
Well, this is definitely the best engine in this category. It's a great, flexible, grunty little 4-cylinder that just feels delightful on the road. It's quiet, it's powerful, and it's smooth. It's got all the attributes covered. The reality is it feels a lot more muscular than its capacity or its numbers suggest. It also helps that it's hooked up to a beautifully sorted 6-speed automatic gearbox. Now this has none of the compromises that any of the other transmissions have. It's beautifully elastic in the way that its ratios are spread. It's nice and smooth away from a standstill and also in the gear changes, so it doesn't have that interruption that the dual clutches have. And the best thing is it's just intuitive. It knows what you want when you want it. The steering, again, it's got this kind of rubber band feel to it that most European Fords have. It kind of has this nice weight on center and then builds up gradually through the ratio. Also, the way that it rides, not quite as fluid as maybe the Tucson, but it's still a very, very comfortable and competent car. There's a duality about the Escape that some of the other cars here don't quite master. It definitely has this urban, comfortable cruiser family car sorted. It's effortless to drive in the city and out on the open road. And yet it also is quite engaging and quite fun. It's got the nicest and strongest brake pedal feel too, which adds to that element of confidence when you're driving. From this seat, it's both effortless and quite engaging to drive.
The Hyundai Tucson is one of Australia's most popular family SUVs for a good reason. It ticks plenty of boxes. The elite model we're testing costs $39,250 plus on-road costs and has two-tone leather trim, dual-zone climate control and electric adjustment for the front seats. What it doesn't have, however, and is a sign of how quickly safety tech has advanced in recent years, is the option to upgrade its basic suite of driver aids. Advanced features like AEB are standard on the higher grade Highlander model, but not even available in the Elite.
The Tucson's cabin might not have as much design flair as some of the others here, but it does present really nicely with good quality materials, and this tan and black colour combination gives it a classy ambience. Otherwise, it's got the most comfortable front seats in this quartet. They're soft and supportive, and certainly has the most comprehensive small item storage here. Those in the back are treated pretty nicely too. There's a similar amount of legroom, but a little bit more headroom than the Eclipse Cross and the Compass. These seats are also the best in the class. They're at the right angle, they're super supportive, and that same level of comfort that you get in the front. However, while you do get rear air vents, you do miss out on power outlets in the back seats.
The Tucson is powered by a 1.6 litre turbocharged four-cylinder that generates 130 kilowatts of power and 265 newton meters of torque, and drives the all-wheel drive transmission via a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic, which helps it match the Mitsubishi as the most economical models with a claimed fuel consumption of 7.7 litres per 100 kilometres.
Somehow, the Hyundai doesn't feel quite as sprightly as those numbers suggest. It's got a little bit of low-down lag as the turbo builds up boost, but after that it's got a reasonably strong mid-range. The good thing about it is the engine is surprisingly quiet. It doesn't have any of the raspy, noisy nature about it, and it revs quite smooth. Part of that initial hesitation comes from the 7-speed dual clutch automatic gearbox down here. Just that initial getaway is a little bit lazy, but once you're on the move, this thing is silky smooth in the way that it changes gears. Dynamically, this is probably one of the best compact SUVs on the market. Hyundai spends a lot of time and a lot of effort tuning its cars for local conditions, and the payoff is that it has excellent compliance and also really good control. It's quiet, it's also quite positive in the way that it stands on the road, but also really comfortable in the way that it soaks up the bumps. The steering is well sorted. It's got a little vagueness on centre, but then it weights up quite nicely through the bends, giving you that sort of positive feel to it. And it certainly has a really sure-footed stance when you do actually push it through the bends. Now, it's certainly not a sports car, but it does imbue a sense of confidence when you're driving it.
There is the perfect family SUV if you combine the best attributes of these four cars. The Jeep's better off-road ability is great for those with a sense of adventure. The Tucson is the most comfortable to drive thanks to Hyundai's local tuning program. And the Eclipse Cross not only has the safety aspect comprehensively covered, its cabin has the best packaging and presentation of this class.
But it is the Ford Escape that scores highly across the board in all those attributes needed to make a great family SUV.
While it is a bit vanilla to look at and doesn't feel as special inside the cabin, the Escape offers a lot of car for the money. It's spacious, comfortable to drive, has the most powerful engine by some margin, and yet is significantly cheaper than the others in this test. And for us, and you as a family, that makes everyone a winner.